welcome to a special live edition of Quick Hits News. I'm David Schuster reporting from Lebanon, Connecticut. Just 13 days until November the 3rd, and we're now starting to see a very clear contrast in the final messages, the final advertising campaigns being run by Democratic challenger Joe Biden and Republican incumbent President Donald Trump. What I'd like to do over the next couple of minutes is show you some of the ad buys that have been made just in the last day or so and highlight sort of the key messaging from both the president and from Joe Biden and get into what the strategy is behind them. We should note that based on some of the latest data, it appears that Joe Biden is outspending Donald Trump in campaign advertising dollars 2-to-1. So Joe Biden's getting his message out a lot more. But it's an interesting message that's also coming from Donald Trump. So first up, I want to play for you the ad that Joe Biden put out last night during Game 1 of the World Series. It is narrated by Sam Elliott, who's an actor known for The Big Lebowski and A Star is Born. And it's an ad, keep in mind here, that doesn't even mention Donald Trump. Here it is. Watch. Decided to launch this in prime time during the World Series and make this the focus essentially for them. One of the things, a couple of things that stand out about this. First of all, again, it's a very, like a lot of closing messages in political campaigns, it's a very uplifting message. There's nothing negative about it. It doesn't even mention Donald Trump. There's no negativity. There's nothing really about negative about Donald Trump. He doesn't make an appearance. The second thing about it, and you see this often in presidential campaigns, is it's a unifying message. It's an acknowledgement that, okay, you may not agree with everything that Joe Biden says, but can we agree that we are all in this together? That's a very powerful message, and a lot of Democratic strategists are buzzing today over how effective they believe this message will be. For Joe Biden's campaign, at least, it's no longer the time to discuss differences with the president over handling of COVID-19 or the economy or wages or health insurance. Now is the time where Joe Biden's final message, the final impression he wants to leave with voters, that Joe Biden believes that we are in this together, that we are going to be a unified country, and that's the way to solve our problems. Pretty interesting message there. I want to turn now to a strong message we're getting from Donald Trump. I'm going to put his picture up here. And this, again, will ring familiar. Over the last couple of days, Donald Trump has been highlighting a New York Post article about Hunter Biden and allegations that, in fact, Hunter Biden exchanged emails with authorities, with officials in China to thank them for introductions to then Vice President Biden. And here's the, I'd say this is a pretty effective attack ad as attack ads go. Here is so let me put on my glasses to make sure I absolutely roll the right video here. Here is the attack ad from President Trump. It's a 30-second ad. It's called Joe Biden, You Are Lying. Watch. As you hear the negative ads, is that a negative ad is not intended to get people to somehow support. A negative ad is intended to suppress turnout for his opponent. And what I mean by that is a lot of campaigns figure, well, if we can just get the other guy's support to drop a bit, then we have a better chance. And so what Donald Trump's campaign is trying to do, and this may ring familiar for those of you who remember what happened in 2016. One of the reasons that the Trump campaign did well in 2016 is because Hillary Clinton's negatives were very high. They were almost as high as Donald Trump. Well, at the moment, Joe Biden's negatives are not as high as Hillary Clinton's were. So the Trump campaign has made a concerted decision that they need to knock down Joe Biden, make him negative, make him unappealing so that more voters will stay home and simply not participate in the election. And if participation is lower, if a lot of the independent voters, the undecided voters decide that they're going to stay home because they can't stand both of them, that may help Donald Trump overall because he believes that his voters are more enthusiastic, have more energy to actually show up and vote either on election day or to vote early. It's an interesting strategy, and I would say as attack ads go, that's pretty effective. The one thing that seems to be hanging out there about Joe Biden has been this claim that he made at the first presidential debate where he said there was nothing to the Hunter Biden allegations, that Hunter Biden traded in on his father's position in order to gain access or to have some sort of business opportunities in China or Ukraine or elsewhere. But now there is this computer laptop that, according to the New York Post, was found and supposedly a laptop that belonged to Hunter Biden, and now it's been deciphered, and there are messages on the laptop which suggest, and emails which suggest that Hunter Biden was thanking officials for, and officials were thanking Hunter Biden for the introduction to his father, the then vice president. So there's another ad that the Trump campaign is putting out all across social media, and it's entitled "Why We Know Joe Biden Got So Angry." And again, this is not a paid advertisement per se, although I think it's being paid for on some social media platforms. But this is an effort, again, by the Trump campaign to raise new questions about Joe Biden, to try to make the focus Joe Biden's potential negatives, the idea that maybe Joe Biden might face a special counsel investigation should he become the president. And the theory in the Republicans is, well, if Americans are already tired of special counsel investigations, including, for example, the Trump impeachment, why would they want to elect a president who would face another special counsel investigation, which is what Joe Biden could conceivably face, although I doubt it's actually going to happen. But that's the message that Donald Trump and his campaign are trying to create. And here's the video that they created with this. Watch. If I can play it. There we go. the Biden campaign and Michelle Obama. And again, that's running a lot on social media. And it's a tactic you see in a lot of campaigns that if you are going to go negative, if you are going to describe a certain sort of urgency, you have somebody who's a great third-party validator, somebody who's extremely popular, deliver the message for you. And that is, what happens here with Michelle Obama. You see the pictures of chaos, conflict. Do we want 4 more years of this? Rather than Joe Biden saying it with whatever baggage he may carry, given the race against Donald Trump, you have somebody very popular like Michelle Obama say it, and it gets the message there the same without, again, the baggage that would come from a Joe Biden or from his campaign. So very smart advertising on the Democratic side in terms of third-party validation. Also extremely smart ad, according to Democratic strategists and even some Republican strategists you talked to today who give some credit to that Sam Elliott ad. We'll play that for you again. But a couple more questions that folks are asking here in the live chat. Biden is not perfect, says Mark Gage, but he is the best start. Look, everybody knows that there are things that the Democratic Party was deeply divided over who should be their nominee. Bernie Sanders won the first couple of primaries. This is the first time, by the way, in the history of Democratic presidential nominations that the Democratic nominee did not win either the Iowa caucuses or the New Hampshire primary. Think about it. First time that's ever happened. So there were a lot of misgivings about Joe Biden during the Democratic primary process and a lot of frustrations among progressives that the Democratic Party essentially all unified to try to defeat the progressives and Bernie Sanders and get behind Joe Biden and make him essentially the establishment candidate, the party candidate. It was successful, but there's still a lot of regrets among progressives who feel that Joe Biden's policies are not progressive enough, whether it's healthcare, whether it's climate change, goes on and on. So at this moment, by acknowledging, as Joe Biden does, that you may not agree with everything that I stand for, you may not think that I may not be perfect, as one of the Mark Gage points out, that rings true to a lot of people who, they may not be so enthusiastic about voting for Joe Biden, but they are extremely enthusiastic about voting against Donald Trump. And they just need some acknowledgement from the Biden campaign that Joe Biden's not perfect. He's going to be the oldest president we've ever had if he wins. He's not in line with many progressives on a lot of issues. He is the establishment candidate in the Democratic Party. There are a lot of people who feel that the Republican establishment and the Democratic establishment are not that different. However, this is an attempt by Joe Biden to say to everybody, it's more important that we all come together to change the country's direction from Donald Trump than it is to try to air out our differences in terms of you support, my version of healthcare or Bernie Sanders' version of healthcare. So again, interesting ad strategy. And one other thing, again, to keep in mind, Joe Biden, according to the data, is got $177 million in the bank right now compared to Donald Trump's $65 million or so. So there's more money at the end Joe Biden can spend on campaign advertising than Donald Trump can. So he's going to, I think, have an ability to blanket the airwaves to an extent that Donald Trump cannot. So largely the message in a lot of these key battleground states is going to be Joe Biden's to define over the final couple of weeks. Now, I keep getting a lot of messages and a lot of emails from folks who say, okay, well, what about the polls? Tell me about the polls. We did a HAPS Live segment a week ago about the polls and my contention that all the data indicates Joe Biden is headed towards a landslide in 13 days, that the race will be declared in the 11 o'clock hour or maybe the 10 o'clock hour on November the 3rd. And the reason is because of the data that suggests that in so many of these battleground states, he maintains a very significant lead, well above the margin of error. A couple of people pointed out, yeah, but Hillary Clinton had similar leads in battleground states 4 years ago, and Donald Trump ended up winning those battleground states. And that's true, but the difference between Joe Biden now and Hillary Clinton back then are stark. Hillary Clinton's negatives were much higher. Joe Biden's are not, which again gets back to why Donald Trump is trying to send up all these negative ads. In addition, there are much fewer undecided voters now than were undecided 13 days before 2016. So yes, it's possible that the battleground states are much closer. Perhaps there are a lot of hidden Trump voters who don't want to acknowledge the pollsters. But I also think that pollsters are doing a better job of their modeling and being careful and conservative in their modeling than they were 4 years ago when everybody was like, oh, yeah, it's going to be Hillary Clinton. And all the pollsters suggest Hillary Clinton was going to win. It's not going to be close. I think I was one of the few people who said, I think there's something going on in the country where the pollsters are wrong. And there are a lot of people who may want to sort of have that bull in the china shop that destroys all the sort of protocols and institutions and break everything up in order to sort of save this country. I felt that there were a lot of people back then. I'm not sure there are as many of those types of voters right now. But let's get back a couple more questions before. I worked with both Clinton, Gore elections, Gore, Lieberman, Kerry, Edwards, both Obama phone banks. That is from Mark. Okay. What about Ashton Kutcher? That's pretty funny. Joe Biden is a corporate goon. Well, look, Bernie Sanders is a centrist, says Rob, or Rob, is it? Look, I mean, this is an election where it's really, I think, again, not so much. This is a traditional, and for people who have studied political science, they will tell you that most presidential elections involving an incumbent, they are a referendum on the incumbent. It's not about the challenger. It's not about the challenger's ideas. It's not about the challenger's policies. It's about, are you satisfied with the direction the country has gone for the last 4 years, and do you want another 4 years of it? The one exception to this, when it was not so much a referendum on an incumbent president, at least in the last several elections, was Barack Obama against Mitt Romney in 2012. The Obama campaign recognized a lot of Americans were not particularly happy in 2012. There had been the rise of the Tea Party. A lot of people thought that healthcare was an overreach. So what the Obama campaign did successfully in 2012 is they made it more of a referendum election on Mitt Romney. They made Mitt Romney so unlikable, out of touch because of his wealth. He's got a car elevator for his car. That successfully made this. Well, people said, I may not necessarily like Barack Obama, but I certainly don't like this guy, Mitt Romney. That is not happening, though, in this campaign. This is not a campaign that is turning into a referendum about Joe Biden, despite all the efforts by the Trump campaign to make it about Biden's alleged criminality and Hunter Biden. This is still, according to all the data and all the polling, this is still a referendum election on Donald Trump. And when you have a sitting president who's got an approval rating of 42%, and you've got a challenger who's got more positives than negatives, it becomes very difficult to change the narrative of this race and make it not so much about the incumbent. And that's why you have Republican strategists like Frank Luntz and others who say, Donald Trump should accept the hand that he's been dealt and somehow figure out a way to bring his own positivity up and not focus as much on Joe Biden, give the country a reason to say, okay, here's what Donald Trump has planned for the next 4 years. But he's not doing that. A couple more questions before we let this go. And I appreciate 28 live chats from so many of you. Trump is literally a corporation. Let's see. The right to vote has literally caused revolution and civil wars across the globe. There's a lot of fears, and that's from a professor I can't read the last name because I got the sun glare again. Sorry. Anyway, look, the fact of the matter is there have been a lot of fears about Election Day in this country. What's going to happen on November 3rd? Is there going to be chaos? Is there going to be civil unrest? Will there be people who have guns who show up at the polls to intimidate people? I think that's one of the reasons, because of those fears, why so many people are voting early. We've had something like 37 million people vote early already. That's nearly 70% of all of the early votes that happened in 2016, and we still have another 12 days of early voting. So by all accounts, early voting is going to smash records. The big question is does that mean that we're going to have record turnout like we haven't seen before, which presumably would help the Democrat Joe Biden? Or is it just because a lot of Democrats are fearful of showing up on Election Day and trying to cast their ballot then, and because of COVID-19 and intimidation, therefore they want the more safe, easier alternative of standing in line now, of going to early polling locations, submitting an absentee ballot? That is a key question, and it's one to watch very carefully. Okay, I want to play the Biden ad one more time again, because I think it was one of this will turn out to be one of the most effective ads. One of the effective ads that I think we will have seen in this campaign cycle. You should get a green screen, man. Looks more professional. Hey, don't be knocking the rental farmhouse where I am in Connecticut. There's a pandemic, man. It's COVID-19. You gotta go with what you got. If you want to send me a green screen, I guess we can work that out. Send me a direct message, and I'll be happy to take your money and put up a green screen and put up something else behind you. But I kind of like the chicken and the rooster behind me and the lighting. I got an 8 out of 10 on Rate My Room, so that's pretty good. So I'm not about to change. I'm not about to change and get a green screen. In any case, okay. Let's go one more time with the Biden ad. Go from there. Again, this is narrated by Sam Elliott, actor known for Stars Born, The Big Lebowski. It's all about unity. It doesn't even mention Donald Trump. Get rid of Mr. Trump here. Let's put Joe Biden back up. And here we go with the Go From There Joe Biden ad. And again, I think this is probably the most effective ad that we have seen in this campaign. Here it is. because we ran the Joe Biden commercial again twice. And again, I do think that's one of the most effective commercials of the 2020 season. It fits, it checks off all the boxes for a closing message. They're running a traditional campaign message, close positive at the end, even if people are feeling negative, be uplifting, talk about unity, acknowledge that people may not necessarily agree with you on everything, but that we have a larger purpose at stake. And again, to run that during the World Series and the heavy ad buy that they have, very effective. But because we ran Joe Biden's, one of his closing messages, I want to run again for you the message from Donald Trump that has been running a lot the last couple of days. Let me put up Donald Trump's picture. This is an effort to try to paint Joe Biden as part of a criminal family, and that he's lying and that he cannot be trusted. Here is the Trump message. Watch. In the messages we are seeing right now, and that I think we're going to see here at the end, in terms of the final messages, the closing message over the final 13 days. It doesn't get much different than this. Joe Biden, a traditional uplifting campaign message, finishing positive, talking about unity, talking about all of us coming together. Donald Trump trying to lower the views of Joe Biden, ratchet up the negativity that people feel towards Joe Biden in the hopes of suppressing Democratic turnout. Because, again, the president is, I think, realizing, and he's been told certainly by his strategy and advisor types, that this is a very different election than 2016. As much as you may want to hope that you can turn around all these battleground polls and that the pollsters are wrong, Joe Biden doesn't have the same high negativity that Hillary Clinton had. There's my light going. Had the same high negativity that Hillary Clinton had in 2016, and there's also not as many undecided voters here at the end. So the theory for the Trump campaign is to drive down the approval of Joe Biden, hope that some more people stay home, drive up the enthusiasm for Trump voters who don't trust the media. That's why, for example, the attack on Leslie Stahl in 60 Minutes, you may scratch your head and say, why is he going after Leslie Stahl and accusing her of being biased? Well, the fact of the matter is the media has a 9% approval rating, and to the extent that Donald Trump can tap into that and to tap in his own party's fears about the media and distrust, perhaps that energizes them and gets more of his supporters out to vote. I want to tease one thing. For all of you who are Tal Heinrich fans on Quick Hits News, she was on fire today when we taped our show that's going to come out today at 5 o'clock. So be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Quick Hits News. You can go to quickhitsnews.com, look up Quick Hits News on YouTube, hit the subscribe button, ring the bell, the video will be delivered to your inbox. You do not want to miss the show that we recorded today. Remarkable stuff. We talked about what's going on in COVID-19. There are no U.S. states right now that are seeing a drop in cases, and in fact, deaths are up 7%. New infections are up more than 30%. It's also the case in Europe. Ireland just imposed a 6-week lockdown. Antonio Mora's got the latest on that. Tal Heinrich has a remarkable report on a Russian nuclear missile test that appears to be in the works. Ariel Hickson, who joins us today on Quick Hits, talks about the urbanites who are fleeing big cities like New York and LA, Chicago, San Francisco, and going to the wide open spaces. And as a bonus, we talk about Pat Robertson's election predictions. The televangelist says that God has told him Donald Trump's going to win. You don't want to miss the reaction from our panel on that. All the news you need in 15 minutes. It's all you need to get caught up on the top U.S. and international stories. We publish at 5 o'clock, but that'll do it for this live edition of Quick Hits News. On behalf of my entire team and everybody at HAPS, I'm David Schuster. Thanks for watching.